honey. I don't know why you're watching. Unless you want to have some input, that'd be great too. So, spiritual midwifery and distance doula. Probably a term that you've never heard because there aren't very many of them out there. Traditional midwifery and doula are in-person services, and unless you have heard of someone using them or use one yourself, it's often a term that you know very little about. Hey, Auntie. So why spiritual midwifery and distance doula? Why not, go to school and actually pursue those paths as a career? Well, first of all, I'm not sure I'd personally be able to handle the physical aspects regarding everything. I do surprise myself sometimes, and I do have a stronger stomach than I like to give myself credit for. But at this point in time, it's not part of the avenue that I seek to pursue. For me, my endeavor in this regard isn't about the physical aspects, but it's more about the mental, emotional side of things. Because of what I personally went through when I was pregnant and using a midwifery service, I found that there wasn't a lot of support past the physical aspect of pregnancy, or even in their additional services. I didn't feel like they were connecting with me on that mental, emotional level. So I felt that there was a gap there, and I felt that that was a gap that needed to be filled. And because I have a strong interest in those mental, emotional faculties, I felt that that would be something that would fill a need that I saw that I missed out on, so that other women and families and couples wouldn't have to have that same lack that I experienced. I'll kind of get into my story and what happened with me in regards to my midwife and then the complications that arose at the end of my pregnancy. I know a lot of people have asked me over the past 3 years, and I've gone to written the story 2 or 3 times, but I get about halfway through and I break down. So yeah, I would like to hopefully be able to get a lot of that off my chest tonight and help others learn from what I experienced in that regard. So the service that I'm offering in regards to spiritual midwifery or distance doula, because I know some people kind of have a off-put kind of relationship with the word spirituality. So I do have both of those words, but for me it really is the same thing. But it's about providing empowerment for women to take control over their own bodies, and for couples essentially when it comes to pregnancy. So that means, not just their body, but their mind and their soul and their spirit or essence, or however you want to look at that. So it's about being that mental, emotional support and being, that person to kind of absorb those nervous emotions. And, if you've gone through pregnancy and everything related to yourself, you know that there is a lot of just emotion from, the hormones and just the process and everything else, and it can honestly be overwhelming. So I really do want to be that sounding board for other families and for mothers, because I personally didn't have that, and it was something that I really craved, especially as a young first-time mom. And honestly, I do feel like the mental, emotional side of everything is harder than the physical. The physical, parts of it, it comes and it goes, but the scars and the patterns that you create in your mind from the experiences, it can have a more lasting effect on your overall health. Especially in regards to postpartum depression. And personally, I didn't even know that I was experiencing postpartum depression until 2.5 years after I gave birth. And to step back and to look at what happened and how I was feeling, it really hit me that, you know, I was experiencing all of these things and I wasn't aware and I wasn't being supported. So I want to provide a better option for mothers and families to, one, be able to identify when you're having postpartum depression and have natural, holistic, let me fix this, options available to you, in addition to, you know, there are places for conventional medicine, but to know that there are multiple options out there for you to get that support that you feel you need, or even if you don't know you need it, that, you know, something is available to you. And when it comes to pregnancy and birth, what I actually saw another doula post about this today, which was great because I was able to grab some of the thoughts regarding women's rights during birth. Because when I was working with my first test client, my friend, this past few months, when she went to go in for her delivery, there was a lot of, I don't even have a word for it, just not appropriate behavior from staff, from support. Just the whole situation wasn't looking pretty, and I did feel bad that I couldn't be there for her because she is my friend, but I was able to be there for her in another way. So I want women to know the rights regarding birth. So the rights regarding birth, which are to say no and to be heard and respected when you say no. Personally, that was one thing during my labor that didn't happen. I was not respected at all. To labor in the way that works for you, including place, people, etc. Again, something that did not happen for me. To know all of your options during pregnancy, birth, and afterwards regarding what's available to you, how you're able to birth, what being allowed to eat, you know, all that kind of stuff. The right to know that you have the choice and right to choose your doctor initially and to change your doctor, your midwife, your nurses, or any support staff at any time during your pregnancy or labor. And even during active labor, you can kick your doctor out of the room, and I've heard of multiple people who have done that. And it honestly, it blows me away that they had the power in themselves and that the doctor respected and, you know, went other way. To leave the hospital, birth center, etc. at any time during labor or after birth. Again, I was held at the hospital after my birth for longer than need be. So to let women know that as long as there were no complications and everything is fine, they are allowed to basically leave when they feel that they are ready to leave. To not be touched. Big one that I have seen from a lot of people talking about their birth stories is invasive exams when they didn't want them. To birth vaginally, whether the breech is suspected or not, and to not be bullied into a cesarean for the convenience of others. So that's not talking about it being medically necessary, but when it's for the convenience of the doctor or staff. And the right to breastfeed and not to be shamed or coerced into formula. As well as many other pre and post birth things that, you know, parents have to decide. They held me because the midwife that was delivering me had just finished her shift and she didn't want to sign the papers to let me go, which wasn't right. They didn't have a right to hold me for another day and a half just until she had her next shift. That was not right at all. Alright, so on the more personal side of why I chose to add this into my list of services and whatnot was when embarking on my spiritual journey, there were a lot of smaller related things to this topic that kind of started to line up for me, regarding past soul lives. Personally, I feel that in some kind of past life I did have trouble either trying to conceive or losing children, because while I was pregnant I had these very aggressive nightmares, and they were very surreal, and I'm still haunted to this day from them, and the emotions regarding losing a child are honestly unbearable. Physically in this lifetime I've never experienced that, but when people tell me their stories, it hits me so deep and so hard that even right now, I'm starting to shake just talking about it, because hearing those stories, I feel it on a whole nother level, and it's something that I cannot physically explain in any logical way other than something must have happened to my soul in another lifetime, because it's not something that happened in this lifetime, or maybe a past ancestor, that DNA stuff, but it's something that's really ingrained in me. And so because of those nightmares and that fear, throughout my entire pregnancy I was totally disconnected. I couldn't form a connection with Caspian, with my baby, and I was in so much fear of losing him, and to develop a bond to just potentially, either lose the pregnancy or, lose him, because there is some family history regarding stillbirth and some things like that. So I was unable my entire pregnancy to form a bond, and I tried to write letters, I tried to do all kinds of different things, but for the most part I just, other than playing with him when he moved, I just, on an emotional level, I wasn't there. 8 weeks when I was pregnant, I actually had developed a serious problem. I was 38 weeks along. I mean, I was pretty much ready to give birth, and what had happened was I developed, I'm going to probably say this wrong because I haven't looked at it in a while, idiopathic cholestasis of pregnancy, so ICP. And basically what it is your liver and your gallbladder start to get so overloaded with the toxins from filtering both your blood and the baby's blood that the bile in your liver and your gallbladder actually start to leak into the placenta and the embryo and start to calcify the placenta. So what the symptoms are is you're really itchy, like burning sensation all the time. And I just thought it was dry skin or whatever. So, but it was keeping me up at night, and I was in so much pain. Like I was scratching myself till I nearly bled. And my husband, he was like, okay, well, we got to bring this up at your next midwife appointment. So I'm like, no, it's fine. It's probably just, itchy skin. But we brought it up, and oh, man, they lost their mind. They're like, okay, well, this is what it is, and we can't see you anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't see me? You're supposed to be my support. And they're like, you have to go to the backup doctor. You need to go for tests. You need this, you need that. Depending on what those tests are, we may allow you to proceed with your home birth. That right there took me right off. And I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say after that. But We went to the doctor, we had tests done. They were very expensive tests. I opted to have the lesser expensive one, but the midwives weren't happy with that because it wasn't conclusive, even though the doctor said that it would be enough. So I had to go back for additional testing, which confirmed that my bile levels were extremely high and getting rapider. Like, it was very rapid. Like, the onset was at like 38, 37 weeks, and within a week it was through the roof. So the doctor and the midwives were extremely concerned because apparently it can result in stillbirth, because the bile and whatnot basically calcifies the placenta and cuts off the blood supply and nutrients and whatever else. So my midwife refused to proceed with birth, and basically nobody was willing to help me proceed with my plan. They said, either you come in every day for testing and monitoring on the baby, or you have to go and be induced like tomorrow. So, I was up in arms. I did not want to go to a hospital. It was not my plan. It was actually a birthing center. Still a hospital. I do not have a good relationship with hospitals. I do not like them whatsoever. I was adamant that I did not want to be in a hospital. But there I was, 38 weeks, like 7 days, and I had to go be induced. And it was the worst thing I've ever experienced, because they used 2 or 3 different methods of induction, and Caspian reacted to every single one of them. His heart rate plummeted, and they started freaking out because I don't know, I guess they never experienced that before. So they let the induction go as long as they could before his heart rate stopped, but they wouldn't let me get off the monitors. They wouldn't let me have a shower. I was told that I wasn't allowed to have a shower because if I went into labor, they refused to basically help me. So I was freezing and in pain and extremely uncomfortable, not wanting to be there. None of my wishes were being acknowledged. I asked for my in-laws not to be in the vicinity because, I was newly married and I didn't know them that well, and I was uncomfortable. I was unhappy with having to be at the hospital. So all of my wishes were being disregarded regarding my birth plan. And it's honestly haunted me, and it to this day I'm still right pissed off about it, because that lack of respect should not happen when a woman is going into labor and trying to birth her child, especially if her birth plan did not go the way it wanted and she is now in her intervention stage. Every wish that she asked for at that point should be respected, but it wasn't. So I was in labor they were trying to induce me, and that wasn't working, but eventually it started to progress on its own after they stopped with the induction. At one point, after the first thing that they tried, they had to give me morphine because the nurse wanted me to sleep. I wasn't thrilled about it. I didn't fully consent, but they pushed it on me anyway. And so I had a nice morphine nap, and I forget what it was. It was really weird. Oh, I was hearing with my eyes or something. It was really weird. Like, it was trippy. It was messing up my brain. But just everything about my birth was just one level of disrespect after another. Eventually, active labor started, and within an hour, my son was born. And from there, we didn't really have any problems. He nursed fine. His heart rate was fine. And then, other than being held at the birthing center for like 2 days past what really I needed to be held, like, I was up and walking within 30 minutes to an hour after my birth. Like, I felt great. I had been in that bed for so long that I didn't care. I wanted to move. And honestly, they were surprised. I was in no pain or anything. I wanted to be out of there, but they held me for longer than need be. So that's the short version of my birth story and the horrors that I had to endure. And I've heard many stories of similar experiences, and even the midwife that was on call, she was so rude, she was really rough. I didn't walk out because, one, they told me I couldn't. Two, they have a special monitor on the baby that shuts down the entire hospital if you do walk out, and they won't take it off until the doctor signs the release. They wouldn't release me because the doctor who delivered me was off for the next day, and there were some other things. Like, it was just ridiculous and unnecessary. Like, I honestly need to call somebody about what's going on at that birth center, because something's not right over there. Oh, and then there was some issue with billing, and they were trying to tell me that if I didn't pay a certain amount before I left, that they were gonna hold us for another 24 hours or something. It was ridiculous. Like, they were just taking advantage of me because I was young and naive and scared and all that stuff. It was honestly really sad. And as the key to my awakening, and I've actually heard a few other mothers refer to their firstborns as the same thing. I honestly believe that there is something about your firstborn that kind of wakes you up to a whole nother world of understanding, of emotion, of just all kinds of things. I also had another kind of awakening experience regarding the whole midwifery doula thing when I was reading The Red Tent. I had been looking for that book for the longest, and I finally had come across it. The universe brought it to me, and I was very excited because I had been looking for it for a long time. And then kind of, I guess, on the same page was when I started to accept my monthly cycle and not buy into the negative connotations that society has ingrained upon us. When I started to accept it, that book manifested itself into my life. So I spent my entire moon cycle that after I bought it reading this book, and the book it touched me on a whole nother level, because I do know, the whole biblical side of the story, and I know that the story is fictitious, but the way that the stories of birth and just coming of age and all of that are portrayed in this book they were so touching to me. And even how, whether, a child or mother was lost or whether the birth went fine, how, gifts of gratitude would be given and all that kind of stuff. It touched me on a whole nother level. And it felt like there was something there for me to put into the world, kind of. I can't think of the words to explain it. It's just a feeling that I have deep down inside. If you've read the book, you probably get it. A little bit about my first client. So while I was developing this idea, one of my friends was about halfway through her pregnancy, and I was very excited for her. We actually had just reconnected after a little falling out. But the reason I chose this friend to be my first trial client in this endeavor was because when we first met and I was pregnant with my son, I was telling her about, my fears and my insecurities and how I feel really unprepared for my first child. And she really helped calm that fear in me, because she said, whether or not a mother plans for her child or tries for her child or has her child unexpectedly, she's never ever fully prepared for what that child, how that child is going to change their life. And that's paraphrasing really, but what she said to me really stuck with me through these past 3 years. So when I saw that she was expecting again, and I was starting to develop this before I shared it with anybody, I knew that I wanted her to be the one that I helped, because she doesn't know this, and I really hope that she watches this later, but that is the #1 reason why I wanted to give back to her by helping. There you are. Welcome. I'm talking about you. Yes, so because of what my dear friend Megan said to me while I was expecting and scared to death, I wanted to give back to her by providing her this service. So she was already about halfway through her pregnancy, maybe 3/4 of the way when I shared my idea with her. And so for every week or so, for the last 2 months, oh, I'm glad you did. So for every week for the last 2 months or so, I worked with her. I read her aura, I read the general energy of the babies because she was having twins. They're a week old. So I read her aura, I read baby's aura, I did chakra balancing, I did various crystal grids for her. You know, we talked about everything that was going on in her life, how she was feeling, you know, all that physical, mental, and emotional support that I wish I would have had. So I really hope you found that of great value, Megan, because I had such a blast working with you. It was so amazing, and it was amazing to be a part of your birth and your pregnancy in the way that I was, and to feel the energy of your boys before they were here, and they're so beautiful. And I know you're having a really hard time right now because they're a week old. I know your whole life's kind of up in the air, but you know I'm here for you, and I'll forever be grateful for the words that you said to me 3 years ago, because yeah, and that's the thing, like, you're my brother's age, you're 2 years younger than me, and because you were, you know, a mom at such a young age, you know, it's really shaped who you are, and I feel really blessed to have you as a friend and to be able to give back to you like that. So if anybody wants a reference, go to her. Much how I approach, or how I'm going to approach it going forward, is basically incorporating all of my other healing energy therapies and other therapies. They'll all be included with any of the midwifery or distance doula services that I'm kind of working to develop, and working out some kinks in regards to that. But I did want to know what everybody else's experiences were in regards to support. So what things have other people said to you that helped? What didn't help? What support you wish you had? What options you wish you knew were available to you? I want to know those things so that I can better create something to help mothers and families who go through this process, because I know that many like myself have had horrific experiences from, you know, either conventional practices or, you know, less than attentive, caring midwives and doulas, because I mean there are some out there who aren't as attentive as they probably should be just a fact of life. Not a lot of people jumped off already. So if anybody's watching this on the replay, I do want to know those answers to those questions. So basically what your experience was, what support you had or didn't have or wish you had. And I also want to hear from fathers and families and partners in regards to their feelings regarding, especially regarding infertility and trying to conceive and postpartum depression, how those things affect the partners, because I don't think that partners and families are getting the acknowledgement and attention in regards to that mental emotional, because it's not physically happening to them, but because it's happening to their partner or happening around them or to someone they love, they too are experiencing those things. So I also want to provide, a support to them as well. Because I do feel there is a gap there in regards to midwifery and doula and related services in supporting families as a whole. So that's pretty much all of it. I know I'm probably running on time here. So thank you for listening and for sharing. I'm gonna go back through and read the comments because it's hard to read them on the little screen here. So my little one's having a tummy trouble. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.